Hey guys, Jamie here. Welcome back to the channel where we take awesome out of the box. In this one, we're going to be taking a look at the Vivo V19 Neo. The brand has been a little quiet recently with their last release prior to this one being the S1 Pro, but they've finally broken their silence with this mid-range device. But is it worth spending your money on? Well, let's show you what comes inside the box and find out. Alright, so here's everything that comes inside the black packaging of the V19 Neo, and no surprises here guys because we do have the usual contents. That includes the phone itself of course, and for this review we have the crystal white color variant with 8GB of RAM and 128GB of storage. Then comes all the usual accessories that come with most phones nowadays, like this SIM ejector pin, which kinda looks like a guitar pick, plus the documentation that no one really reads until something goes wrong. You also have a clear jelly case, USB-C cable, and an 18-watt charger. So that's everything that comes inside the packaging. Now let's take a closer look at the phone itself. Now, if you're thinking that the overall design of the V19 Neo looks familiar, well, I definitely agree with you. There's a lot about this phone that reminds me of the S1 Pro, but they did ditch that diamond-shaped camera module for something that fits in for today's camera arrays. And while that's not necessarily a bad thing, the V19 Neo also inherits the polycarbonate plastic body of the S1 that some might consider a downgrade because the V17 was decked out in glass. Not to worry though, because it does feel very sturdy and sits in the hand well too. Since we did jump straight into a review for this phone, let me show you the button and port layout. You have the power button and volume rocker on the right side of the phone. Access to the SIM tray can be found on the left. And on the bottom are the headphone jack, USB-C port, and of course, the speaker grill. Now, ever since the V11, Vivo has been using AMOLED panels for their V series devices, and I'm glad they continue that on this device. You've got a display that measures in at 6.44 inches at Full HD Plus resolution, and while Vivo was one of the pioneers that brought us the pop-up camera, they have decided to go with a flow and went with a punch hole instead on the V19 Neo. Now in terms of picture quality, I'm not going to complain, it is an AMOLED panel after all, which means you're getting deep blacks with very punchy colors that makes consuming content on this device a blast. Having an AMOLED panel also gives you access to an in-display fingerprint scanner, and just in case you're wondering, we are only getting a 60Hz refresh rate on this screen, which isn't a deal breaker, but it is worth mentioning. Also folks, the audio from that bottom speaker is average, so make sure you take advantage of that headphone jack. Now let's talk about the processing package for the V19 Neo, and I've got to be honest guys, I'm a little disappointed. Disappointed because under the hood of this new mid-range device in 2020 is a Qualcomm Snapdragon 675 processor that's paired with 8GB of RAM and 128GB of storage. It's the same SoC they've been using since the V15, and while you can still get some decent performance out of it, I would have loved to see a 720G on this phone to make it a bit more current. Despite its age though, the processor on the Neo still chugs along quite well at both daily tasks like browsing the web and scrolling through your social media feeds, plus it can handle some of our go-to games with a few hiccups. We did see it struggle at Asphalt 9 with very noticeable frame rate drops at the start of each race, but MOBAs like Mobile Legends, Battle Royales like PUBG and COD Mobile still perform decently at max settings. We would suggest bumping down the details a bit to get the most frame rates possible, and you might have to go even lower for more demanding titles. Now, one thing I do like about this 2-year-old processor is the fact that it takes tiny sips from the Neo's 4500 mAh battery. In our battery benchmark test, the V19 clocked in at 16 hours and 13 minutes. That translates to a cool 2 days worth of battery life on a single charge. Of course, that will vary with your usage, but that's at least a day and maybe a bit more for heavy users. Sadly though, you are just limited to 18-watt charging, so it may take a tad longer to top up this device. Now let's talk about the cameras. Let's start with the front camera since there's only one, and it's a 32 megapixel selfie shooter at an aperture of f2.0 that's tucked away in that minuscule punch hole. Moving on to the back of the phone, you've got a quad camera setup that consists of a 48 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultrawide, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensor. In terms of picture quality, you aren't really getting a huge step up from the previous generation of the V series. You're generally getting the same amount of detail and versatility with these cameras, but they did improve on the post-processing after you hit that shutter button that produces a bit more sharpness, especially for that wide-angle lens. Honestly, it's a bit of a mixed bag with some photos with a tad too much saturation for my taste though. You're also getting the ever popular night mode with the V19 Neo as well, but it is worth mentioning that you cannot use this feature with a wide-angle camera, which is a bit of a bummer. In terms of selfies, the front camera seems to struggle in tougher lighting conditions, but it's still pretty solid if you do have a lot of light. So what are the pros and cons for the V19 Neo? An easy check on the plus column is definitely the display. I love a good AMOLED panel since I do use phones more for watching videos and thumbing through my social media feeds, so I really appreciate how colors pop on the display of this phone. Another is the fact that the V19 Neo has great battery life. I know we have access to more wall sockets now that we're mostly staying indoors, but no one wants to be tethered to the wall, so it's good that this phone has a lot of endurance. Which brings me to my first con, charging speed. Now, I wouldn't say that 18 watts is slow, but it's definitely not quick on the draw too. Of course, you can offset this by making sure you're almost always topped up and ready to go, but having just slightly faster charging speeds would have been a lot better considering the phones that this is up against. Now, point number 2 for the minus column, the SoC. As I said, the Snapdragon 675 still puts in a ton of work and you can still enjoy games on your phone, but it is starting to show its age, and I wonder if it will be able to stand up to more demanding apps that may be on the horizon. Another barrier for the V19 Neo is its price tag of 17,999 pesos because it is going up against some aggressively priced competition that has 1 or 2 tricks up their sleeves. And that's pretty much it for this one, guys. Thank you very much for dropping by and spending a few minutes with me. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up, sub to the channel, and hit that notification bell if you haven't already. If you have any questions, leave them down below and I'll try my best to get to them as soon as I can. For all the latest tech news and gadget reviews, head to unbox.ph, plus follow us on Facebook and on Instagram. My name is Jamie. Peace, God bless, and I'll see you guys next time.